I was born and raised in Miami. I lived in Santa Monica for about 9 years and came back to Miami Beach about 15 years ago. I had an idea when I was 23 years old. I was at the airport waiting for an ex-girlfriend to come in, trying to think about what we might talk about, how to break the ice. And for no good reason, the question, if I were president, what's the first thing I would do in office, popped into my head. And thinking about it for a second, my first thought was mandatory Seinfeld viewing, which was very popular at the time and still is. And I realized that you could answer that question in a funny way, in a serious way, and that became the first question in my first board game, Loaded Questions. And from there, I've developed about 30 games and thankfully worked with a lot of great retailers, and I'm still going. My company name is All Things Equal, and I started it in 1997. I drove around the country actually for 16 weeks, selling Loaded Questions out of the trunk of my car, meeting with toy stores, camping out, sleeping on friends' couches. And by the time I got back to Miami, I had sold about 1,000 games and got my game into Toys R Us, which was a big milestone. And today I've sold more than 3 million games. I work with Target and Barnes & Noble and Kohl's and Amazon and lots of great specialty stores. And I'm still inventing new games. All family party games like Loaded Questions and Awkward Family Photos, the My Weird School game, and then I have some dirty games like Happy Endings and Major Woody's Wild Foursomes. So I test my games first with my family. I have 2 teenage daughters, and my wife and I usually sit around the kitchen table trying out my new concepts. And if I don't get major groans from my daughters, then I know I might have a good game there. Beyond that, I recruit people from Craigslist, I recruit friends of mine. That's how I start my games. Games had been kind of a mainstay in the toy industry before, during, and after the pandemic. And certainly games like Cards Against Humanity and What Do You Meme help people realize how fun games are. And there are so many out there. I do the New York Toy Fair every year, where you see thousands of new games. So everyone's competing for shelf space. Amazon provides an opportunity to sell your product, but then you need to market your product on Amazon. There's just so many great games out there. I'm partial to mine, obviously, but if you look, you'll find them. I'll be taking the company Sprinter, which is decaled with all my games, on a 5-week trip leading up to, during, and after the New York Toy Fair, where I'll be hitting up game stores, game cafes, breweries, restaurants, historic sites, and passing out free product, demoing my games. And it's sort of a nod to how I started my company 26 years ago when I drove around the country selling Loaded Questions out of the trunk of my car. It's also to promote my new Loaded Questions Greatest Hits Edition, which is celebrating the 26th anniversary. So my favorite game that I make is definitely Loaded Questions. It's the one that started it all. Depending on who you're playing with, every game is fun and there's lots of laughter. I guess a second favorite would be Awkward Family Photos Greatest Hits, which combines 100 photos from the popular website awkwardfamilyphotos.com with 300 memorable movie lines that you use to caption the photos. So very much in the vein of a What Do You Meme, Cards Against Humanity, Apples to Apples game, but using funny pictures with movie lines. Otherwise, if you have 2 decks of cards, playing cards, there's so many things that you can do, from hearts to spades to gin. And beyond that, my wife and I play Scrabble, backgammon, and Settlers of Catan would be, top games in this house. So the traffic is really bad. I would say that's the biggest change that I've noticed since I moved back here 15 years ago. But I love Miami. I'm a beach guy. I'm out riding my bike or on a paddleboard or a kayak or running, playing tennis. And when I'm not doing that, I'm looking for a good taco, or at Crema getting a breakfast sandwich. That's where you'll find me. Taco-wise, I'm a fan of Tequitzalan in Sunset Harbor. I love Uptown 66, but I really love any taco. It's my weakness. I love stand-up comedy. I go to as many shows as I can, and you'll see behind me Kurt Vonnegut, who's one of the funny people in my life who I commission an artist to draw. I have the Three Stooges, Howard Stern, Dave Chapelle, Larry David, Chris Farley. It sort of was a project of mine at the start of the pandemic. Things that kind of make me smile, make me laugh, to fill those dark pandemic days that are thankfully mostly behind us. They were done by an artist in Philadelphia who designed a couple of my board game boxes and the components inside. So he's the master illustrator of my comedy project, my Pantheon of funny people.